Hi, in this video we'll be creating our first NLP rules base and populate it with a generator. Generators are used in the second step of the NLP platform. They extract variables and use those in a template, like the one we defined in the last video. We'll start with fleshing out this step first, because the generator defines what kind of sentences we'll be able to use, but you are free to do them in any order you like. At the end of the video, we'll have a generator that is able to deconstruct sentences in a default format and extract certain variables from that formatted sentence, also called a canonical. As you can see right here, we extract property, location, and threshold from the canonical. We'll also be able to bind these in a template. So, let's start by creating a new rules base. Go to the NLP section and press Create. I call mine Weather Checker. The name should be a unique identifier. The title is just for readability. I'll leave the description blank for now. When opening the rules base we just created, we'll see two sections: prompt examples, which we are going to cover in the next video, and generators. Under the generators, you'll see there are already a bunch of them. That is because we supply some general system generators to help you out. You will be able to nest generators and create your whole own language, like if it is dark outside and the blinds are up, then close the blinds, using multiple of these system generators. But that is out of the scope of this video. I'll leave a link to all the relevant documentation down below, so you can check it out for yourself. For now, we will not be using these system generators, so let's create our own. I'll call mine Above Threshold Check, and select the weather checker template we created in the last video. Going into the generator, we'll see a section for the canonical pattern. This is the formatted sentence that will be used to extract the variables from. The template source just is a link to the template we linked to this generator. Variables state all the variables we need to fill out for the template, and we'll be able to state how we want that to happen. Generated label just shows how the resulting rule will be named. For now, this is not changeable using the UI, but you can change it through the API. I'll leave the API docs down below. Lastly, there is a section to export a value. This is used when nesting generators, so that the generator knows what output it should give to the next one. If you have a look at the in-range system generator, for example, we see that it selects the state of one of the nodes in the rule as exported output. Okay, let's go back to our generator and create a canonical pattern. Press Create Pattern. Here we need to fill out our pattern, but what does that actually look like? Well, a canonical pattern is a formatted string that tells the system where the variables or subgenerators will be. Let's have a look at the canonical pattern I wanted to use for our weather checker use case. Message me when the property equals, followed by some properties, in location, colon, is above threshold, colon. Here, the property, location, and threshold are variables we want to extract. For the property variable, we define some values it can be. This way we know it will always be one of the properties we defined over here, and we don't support any others. We define these kinds of variables by an equal sign followed by the values surrounded by round braces and separated by the or sign. On the other hand, the location and threshold variables are just free and will be filled in by any values that are in these locations in the canonical. We define them by adding a colon to the variable name. It's also important to note that you cannot use any punctuation marks in a canonical string, only alphanumerical characters. Let's copy and paste this pattern into our field. We can already test our pattern to see if it extracts the right values. Looks like it does work. Temperature, London, and 20 are correctly extracted. Next, we have to bind the variables that get returned to the variables of the weather checker template from the last video. Press Edit in the Variables section. We can bind these in different ways. For example, if we want a value to be constant, we can just define that constant here. For example, if I always want to check for London, then just type London in the location. But of course, we want to bind the variables from the canonical string. To do this, we use dynamic binding. Just type $, open the curly brackets, canonical dot, and then the name of the variable in the canonical pattern. In this case, location, and then close the curly brackets again. We do the same for the other variables. Don't forget to press save when you're done. And that's it for setting up our generator. We have made a canonical pattern that will extract variables from a formatted sentence and bind those variables to the variables of a rules template, the one we made in the last video for this example. There are a lot more advanced things you can do with generators, like linking them to one single plug instead of a whole rules template, or nesting them. But that is out of the scope of this video. You can check the relevant documentation in the description down below. Remember that we wanted to be able to give the same command in multiple ways. Like, send me a message if the temperature in Paris is above 30 degrees. Or, when the humidity in London is over 50, send me a text message. In the next video, we'll be looking at how we can transform these by creating a little database of examples and then test our use case end to end. So, I'll see you there.